I'm going to be talking about Fortinet's newly launched FortiCNP cloud-native protection platform, and why it's different from other cloud-native protection platforms that you may have seen. Fortinet has been working with customers over the past several years to really mature the approach to cloud-native protection, platform security in the cloud, and specifically around AWS. And what we found from our customers is that generally there's a lack of visibility into cloud assets, what that entire life cycle of those assets looks like, and understanding the threats that they face in their infrastructure. And they typically find that they have a lot of security tools, and those security tools don't contribute to better visibility. In fact, they oftentimes make the visibility worse because information and data is spread across so many pieces of our data sources and across so many tools that it really leads to this concept of alert backlogging that never really gets resolved. You have more alerts coming in than the security operators and the security practice can address. And then that in turn makes mitigation and remediation all but impossible. And so we've taken this information, this feedback, and we've asked customers, okay, how can we do it differently? How can we be unique in helping the security practice function more effectively? And they told us about the different services that are important to them. All of these really constitute in some way an overall view of security posture and cloud management, right? So managing vulnerabilities, entitlements, these are different services individually that can be consumed and often are consumed individually. But we wanted to look at, okay, how do we take all of these different concepts and bring them together? Because, again, if these are spread across different tool sets and different data sets, it makes it very difficult to correlate threats in your environment, the vulnerabilities that you have across resources. And customers typically have to choose, do I want to go with first-party services or do I want to go with third-party services? In the first-party side, the first-party tools are obviously cloud-native, right? The AWS services that you use. They're easy to deploy, they're scalable, right? So there's a lot of benefits there. It's just easy to use. But there are some drawbacks. Depth of feature may be an issue compared to a pure-play provider. You may, depending on how many cloud platforms you have, you may have to manage a lot of disparate skill sets. On the ISV side, the third-party side, typically they're providing single dashboards. They're providing additional integrations across their own portfolios or into third-party systems or across multiple clouds, so that's great. And they have depth of capabilities within their pure-play area of focus. So those are great, but oftentimes, or most always, one has to choose one or the other. And so there's a compromise. And so we wanted to understand and provide a way to remove that sense of compromise. And so we came up with this concept of what we call FortiCNP, or cloud native protection. We want to take the services that customers are already using within AWS, and we partnered with AWS on this, to use the existing engines that customers have driving their threat intelligence, such as AWS Inspector, AWS Macie, and GuardDuty, feeding that through Security Hub and consuming that and using that those data engines to provide enriched resources. And we feed those into our FortiCNP platform to provide a different view on how the security practice should be approaching risk management and threat mitigation. And so we've developed this concept of RRIs, and what an RRI is a resource risk insight. So this is really novel. We've patented this approach to posture management within the cloud. And really, RRIs are a metric, but really this facilitates a workflow. So if you start on the left side of the screen, we've got our resources, and the resources are the focus of how we approach this, where this is very different. So typically, the traditional method is I get a data dump of all my alerts, all my findings, and now I have to sift through those alerts, and I have to sift through those findings. But what we're doing is saying what's important to the business is the resource, the workload, the storage bucket, the function that you're running. And we changed the focus for the security operator to go through a workflow where I've got threat intelligence that I can feed in. I can parse that in several ways. Is it a vulnerability or is it an active threat? We prioritize those for the customer or for the security operator. We build a risk score that can be viewed historically. So is my security posture getting better within my cloud environment over time, or is it getting worse relative to the resources that I'm deploying? And we distill that down into a very simple view of a risk score for the critical assets that the business defines. We're not defining the criticality for you. We're letting the business define that criticality. And then we recommend remediation action. So for this, think of if you are a security operator, a practitioner in the SecOps space, what you're doing is you're working through a very well-defined workflow where the priority is easily made apparent to you. So in the old way of doing things, if you're a security practitioner, you're getting individual alerts, you're having to look at documents that may be infected with malware or have PII. You've got all of these different individual things that you have to consider. You have to roll up reporting and aggregate all of that information to higher level stakeholders. But we want to distill that down, right? So it really is a focus on risk management and threat management to make compliance and then integration with DevSecOps much easier. So if I have a third-party tool into which I need to feed this workflow, like a ITSM, like ServiceNow, or a Jira as an example, I can take the information, the response that and the action that I'm taking against those threats and specific to those resources, and push those into those tools. So I want to show you what it looks like practically. I'm going to do a contrast here. So this is going to be a bit of a tease. It's not a full real demo here. I'm going to ask everyone who's listening to head over to the Fortinet booth 109, and we will give an in-depth demo on exactly what this looks like in real time. So think about this is a list of VPC flow logs, right? So try to figure out, I have a list of flow logs, which flow logs apply to my particular resource. That might be a little bit difficult for a person to figure out. But I have a list of data. It could be very good data. I don't know. And then I look into a little more detail. Maybe I'm in Security Hub, and I have a list of alerts, right? And they're not necessarily resource specific. I have to figure out, okay, these are defined high, medium, and low priority. Which one do I address first, ultimately, right? So, not necessarily clear on how we manage these alerts and in what priority and into what specific resources they apply. And so further, when I dig into some of these alerts, I'm now looking at some JSON, and I'm going through this and trying to figure out, okay, what exactly is the threat? I see it affects an EC2 instance, so I got to go figure out what that EC2 instance is. And then maybe I have to manage my own query. I do my own filtering, and then maybe I can distill it down to what that resource is and all of the threats associated with that resource, right? But which of the alerts is tied to that resource is the priority? I don't know. So we take a bit of a different view here. So firstly, when you use FortiCNP, we're showing you an overall risk assessment for your environment. In this simple graph, we just added these risk resource insights. So now I can see how the overall threat against my cloud environment is trending relative to the number of resources that I have. Ultimately, the blue line should be trending down, even though the red line trends up. On the right side of the screen, we can see and we can group environment. So if I have a development team that has a certain number of accounts that I want to group together, I can do that. I can assess their risk differently. I can manage a risk score tailored to that group differently from other groups. And I can start to get visibility into certain focus areas of my business, such as production workloads. Maybe I'm running an ERP system that has critical PII data, and I want to treat that as a higher priority overall. Or I want to sort that by cloud, you can do that. So organizing the data is very important and a part of this, what we do here. So now, when I look further into the tool, I want to see very clearly that I have active threats, active risks. I can see those. Everything that we have here is clickable, so I can, again, sort and filter data with a simple click. I can look at risky connections. I know that I have botnets in my environment. Fortunately, in this demo sample, we have no malware, but I would see that very clearly. And then I can also see all of those resources, and I can simply filter those resources. Now, if I want to go a little deeper, I'm looking at a particular resource. So in this example, it's an EC2 instance. And in this EC2 instance, my eye is firstly going to go to this risk resource insight scoring. So this RRI is giving me is in a calculation that again is defined by the business. So it's a weighted calculation. It's a logarithmic function that says, all right, based on these certain attributes and these certain types of alerts, how do I want to score this? That risk score is modified by the business to say, I have certain metadata values that I attach to that particular resource, and those metadata values carry a different weighting factor. And so that's how I push the priority of a particular resource up in my priority queue. And so then I come down and I look at, how do I sort and prioritize? As a security practitioner, the first thing I want to look at are threats. So I look at the threats, I sort that out from vulnerabilities and other potential threats, but maybe not yet threats. And I can see that activity, and those high, medium, lows are sorted for me. But again, all of this is influenced by the custom risk score that I provide. And then if I want to dig into that resource a little more, I can see where that threat or that threat detail was sourced. We output very clear information about what that threat is and what the remediation steps are. And so what I'm trying to paint here is a picture of operationalizing good AWS data. So as a security operator, I have a very clear workflow on how I want to approach issue resolution within my cloud environment. Now, we also have the same capability for container environments, right? So we insert ourselves into the workflow coming through your CI/CD pipeline. On the pre-runtime side, we can look for compliance relative to vulnerabilities, certain policies that must be adhered to from a compliance perspective. And then in the runtime phase, we can monitor the Kubernetes environment for CIS controls and other benchmarks to make sure that environment is safe to operate as well. Now, in terms of customer benefits, we think that AWS has great services. When we launched this product yesterday, we did so with AWS. We wanted to, not, again, reinvent the wheel. We didn't want to create our own engines, that drive up the cost of the service. We know that AWS has good tools, so what we did was we leveraged those tools. So it's definitely integrated with AWS's capabilities. It provides us with global visibility across all of your the entire AWS estate. And then of course it's absolutely scalable. So the AWS services that you have are scalable. Our product then, of course, by extension, scales extremely well. We're using Neptune databases and graph databases to correlate all of this information in our back end. We're applying our own threat intelligence on top of the information that AWS is providing. And then we're solving, really at the end of the day, those workflows and those risk scores and that prioritization are solving for the alert fatigue. So we're allowing the security operators to, instead of looking at every individual security alert, if you focus on the resource, we now can get ahead of the backlog of alerts. So what you're getting back is ultimately the return on investment is seen in terms of the time and motion that the security practice gets back, right? So the overall cost savings is driven by the fact that I now have a lower level of effort. I have scarce resources. I can take those human resources and move them to more high priority items. So to summarize, overall, you're coming away with a better security posture because we've established effective workflows that are focused on what matters. They're focused on resources and not alerts. Got ahead of myself. Now, risk resource insights are the key here. They provide actionable intelligence. That's the thing about this. With the services that you've typically used out of AWS, it's got a lot of good data, but we're operationalizing that and we're making them actionable. And finally, the third point is, as I mentioned before, you're going to run a far more effective and more efficient security operations team. You get time back from looking at logs, looking at alerts, The security operator's attention is very, very focused on what threats matter. And at the end of the day, your team is going to have a higher impact on the effectiveness of your security state. Now, we launched this yesterday. It's available on AWS Marketplace. We'd encourage anybody who's interested to do a 14-day free trial. We have some information on landing pages. We have joint press releases with AWS. And over here at the Fortinet booth, we'd love to do a live demo with you. So please stop by, take a look, and we can talk about that or any other security needs that you might have from a network, application, or platform perspective. Thank you.